Mummy, Mummy, wake up. 7-year-old Layla's small hands tapped softly at Audrey's pillow, her voice full of excitement. We'll be late to get to the park, she said, her breath warm and sweet like honey tea. Audrey groaned lightly, turning on her side as the morning light filtered through the faded curtains of their modest one-bedroom apartment in Victoria Island. I remember, sweetheart, she mumbled, trying to shake off sleep. Go and get dressed. Mummy will get ready too. Layla beamed and skipped away toward the worn-out wardrobe, already pulling out her sunflower print dress and mismatched socks. Audrey dragged herself out of bed and made her way to the bathroom, her limbs heavy with exhaustion, but her heart always soft when it came to Layla. In the mirror, she paused. Her reflection stared back, tired eyes, full lips, and the faintest smile trying to push through. At just 24, Audrey felt so much older. The woman looking back at her had sacrificed more than most could imagine. 6.5 years ago, everything changed when her elder sister Zion appeared at her doorstep, a baby wrapped in a faded blue blanket and tears threatening to spill. I'm not ready to be a goddamn mother, Zion had said flatly, and I don't want to be called one, ever. The birth certificate she handed over bore Audrey's name. No space for arguments, just a door that slammed on responsibility. Back then, Audrey had been in her 3rd year of medical school, juggling lectures, night shifts, and bills. She was paying her way through life. But now, with a baby in her arms and no support, school had to go. She dropped out and stepped into motherhood with both feet. No regrets, not a single one. Even though she was still a virgin, having vowed to only give herself to the man she'd marry, Audrey bore every weight with grace. Layla was hers, heart and soul, the reason she kept going. Preston Ikena-Owu stood by the towering glass window of his upscale office, watching Lagos pulse beneath him. Cars weaving through traffic, pedestrians hustling along the sidewalks. Life moving with chaos he could never quite relate to. At just 28, he had built an empire. Though born into wealth, he'd turned his father's forgotten real estate arm into a digital-first, multi-billion naira conglomerate. Every success bore his fingerprints. Every failure? He didn't allow any. But today, as he stood in his penthouse office with Lagos at his feet, all he felt was emptiness. Loneliness had grown like mold in the cracks of his perfect life, and lately it had been louder than ever. He sighed, casting a sharp glance at the lukewarm, creamy mess on his desk, the 3rd failed cup of coffee from his latest secretary. 3 assistants in 1 month. 3 women who cared more about getting into his bed than learning how he took his coffee. He didn't blame them entirely. He was tall, powerful, ridiculously wealthy, and well aware of the effect he had. But none of that meant anything when all they saw was his last name and his bank balance. Without a word, he rose, straightened his blazer, and headed for the elevator. For the first time in over a year of working in this building, he was stepping into the coffee shop downstairs. He didn't even know its name. He just wanted to breathe, feel something real. Downstairs, Colin's Coffee Snacks buzzed with casual chatter and the smell of pastries. Audrey had just returned from her quick shift change after running around the park with Layla. Her legs ached, but Bills didn't care about fatigue. Tying her apron tightly around her waist, she spotted the tall man who'd just walked in. Clean lines, dark eyes, and a presence that made the air shift. She grabbed her notepad and approached. Good morning, sir. Welcome to Colin's Coffee and Snacks. What can I get for you? Preston turned, and for a split second, time paused. She wasn't dolled up. She wasn't trying to seduce him, but her natural beauty hit him like a slow-moving storm. Her skin was deep brown and glowing. Her hair was tied into a neat puff, and her eyes, God, those eyes carried depth, grace, something untouched. He almost said, "You're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen." But instead, his voice came out clipped, as usual. Coffee, black. Audrey nodded with a faint smile and turned. Preston watched her walk away, her gait unbothered, almost regal. She didn't look back. She didn't flirt. She just existed like a queen who didn't need a crown. She returned minutes later, placed the coffee gently in front of him without a word, and walked away. Preston took one sip and froze, Rich, bold, bitter in all the right ways. The warmth seeped into his chest. He leaned back in his seat, eyes following Audrey behind the counter, and whispered under his breath, "Now this is what I'm talking about." She was an angel, and she made damn good coffee too. The night air in Victoria Island was soft and still as Audrey stepped out of the cafe, the pink foil box nestled carefully in her hands. It wasn't much, just a simple vanilla cake with swirls of buttercream and Layla's name written in delicate white. But it was special. Tomorrow, her little girl would turn 7, and even if there wouldn't be balloons or a fancy party, Audrey was determined to create a memory worth holding on to. She had closed late again, helping restock shelves and mop the floors long after customers had left. Her feet were swollen in her old sneakers, and the ache in her shoulders reminded her she hadn't eaten dinner. But she was used to pushing through. For Layla, she would do anything. The quiet was broken by the low hum of an engine. A sleek black Mercedes-Benz glided to a stop in front of her. Her heart jumped. This wasn't the kind of street people cruised in luxury cars without a reason. She tightened her grip on the cake box as the back door slowly opened. "Get in," a familiar voice said. Audrey froze. When she leaned forward, the faint glow of the streetlight revealed him. Preston, the man from the cafe, still dressed in black, still effortlessly striking. She hesitated. He leaned slightly toward her, eyes scanning the shadows. "Seriously, get in before those men across the street notice you." Only then did she glance behind her and spot the group of drunken men stumbling out of a nearby bar, loud and unpredictable. She swallowed and climbed in without another word. The driver looked at her through the mirror. "Madam, where to?" Audrey cleared her throat. "Harmony Crescent, Victoria Island, by the small white mosque." Preston turned toward her slightly, his gaze curious. "What's in the box?" She looked down at the cake and smiled faintly. "It's for my daughter, Layla. She turns 7 tomorrow, and I won't be coming to work, so I picked it up tonight." Preston raised an eyebrow, surprised. "You're a mother?" Audrey chuckled. "Yeah, doesn't show?" "It shows," he said, a little softer than he meant to. "You have that calm energy, but strong." There was a pause, and then he added, "So, am I invited?" She looked at him, half amused. "To a small cake celebration in my tiny apartment with my best friend, her niece, and our neighbor, Mrs. Jones?" "I've been to worse," he replied with a slight smirk. She laughed and nodded. "Sure, you're invited." He smiled. "What's your name?" "Audrey," she replied, relaxing a little now. There was a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. "You seriously don't know who I am?" Audrey blinked. "Am I supposed to?" His smile deepened, a mix of amusement and disbelief. "I'm Preston." She tilted her head. "Okay, Preston." Still doesn't ring a bell. He let out a soft chuckle, shaking his head. It had been years since someone looked at him without recognition or calculation. When the car stopped in front of her modest flat, she offered a quiet, "Thank you," and climbed out with her cake. He watched her walk away until she disappeared inside the gate. Inside, she picked up Layla from Mrs. Jones, who was already in her nightrobe. The child was fast asleep, soft cheeks flushed from dreaming. Audrey carried her gently into their bedroom, tucked her in, then collapsed onto her own small bed after a hot shower. But sleep? Nowhere in sight. Preston. That man was carved like he belonged on the cover of a royal calendar. He looked expensive, sounded powerful, and yet talked to her like she mattered. She turned on her side, the tiniest smile tugging at her lips. Where on earth had he come from? Up in his penthouse suite, Preston couldn't sleep either. He sat by the window, phone in hand. Audrey's number saved and glowing on the screen. She didn't know who he was. She didn't care about his name. That made her even more dangerous and unforgettable. She's rare, he thought, and I'm not letting someone else get to her first. Audrey was up before the birds even began to sing. The sky outside was still a dark gray canvas, but inside her tiny Victoria Island apartment, the air buzzed with quiet purpose. Today was Layla's birthday. 7 years of laughter, tears, hustle, and blessings wrapped in one little girl. She rose quietly from the bed and gently nudged Layla's shoulder. Sweetheart, wake up slowly. I need you to go stay with Mrs. Jones for a bit, okay? Mummy wants to dash to the market. Still half asleep, Layla mumbled, Okay, Mummy, before curling into a blanket and padding out toward the neighbor's flat next door. The moment the door shut, Audrey sprang into action. There was never any market run planned. She pulled out the birthday cake she had hidden behind a tub of ice in the refrigerator and set it on the dining table. It was small but beautiful, vanilla sponge with pink frosting, a few sugar flowers, and Happy Birthday Layla written neatly across the top. She reached into a plastic bag she had tucked under the couch days ago and brought out red balloons, streamers, and a foldable Happy Birthday banner. One by one, she blew each balloon herself, tying them with trembling fingers and taping them around the room. The banner went up next, then the centerpiece, the cake. By 8 a.m., she was stirring a pot of jollof rice, the rich tomato aroma filling the apartment with warmth and love. A second pot of peppered chicken bubbled beside it. She wanted everything to be perfect. Once the food was done, she raced to the bathroom, had a quick but refreshing shower, and slipped into a simple yellow sundress. It clung lightly to her skin, catching the light beautifully. She pulled on a curly, shoulder-length wig and applied a touch of gloss. No makeup, no lashes. Just Audrey, soft and glowing in the morning sun. She had barely finished adjusting the setup when her best friend Gift arrived with her little niece Zara. Happy birthday to the little queen, Gift sang cheerfully as she entered. Audrey smiled wide but quickly pulled her aside. Listen, don't freak out. Preston is coming. Gift's eyes nearly bulged. Wait, as in tall, dark, coffee-sipping Finey Preston? The one who makes suits look like sin? Yes, that one, Audrey whispered, biting her lip. You invited him? He asked. I couldn't say no. Before Gift could react, a knock sounded at the door. Audrey's heart skipped. She opened it slowly, and there he was. Preston stood at the door, dressed in a black shirt and gray slacks. Simple but refined. In his hands were 2 wrapped boxes. For the birthday girl, he said, holding out the bigger box. And for you, he added, handing her the smaller one. Audrey blinked. For me? No one ever gets the mom anything, he said casually, stepping inside. Her heart fluttered. Just as she was about to offer him a seat, Audrey dashed out to collect Layla. Mrs. Jones had already bathed and dressed her in a bright red dress with little rhinestones and matching patent shoes. Happy birthday, baby girl, Audrey whispered as they walked back hand in hand. But when Layla entered the apartment and saw the decorations, her jaw dropped. Mommy, she breathed, staring at the balloons, the food, and the cake. You did all this? Audrey smiled, fighting tears. Happy birthday, Layla. I thought... Layla's voice cracked, tears filling her wide brown eyes. I thought we wouldn't be able to celebrate this year. I knew you were low on money. Audrey dropped to her knees and cupped her daughter's face. Mama will always find a way. I'll do anything for you, baby. The room filled with laughter and chatter as they ate, danced, and celebrated. Layla tore into Preston's gift, a grand dollhouse, fully furnished, and screamed with delight. She ran up to him, threw her arms around his neck, and hugged him tight. Thank you, Uncle Preston. This is the best gift ever. He chuckled, holding her gently. Glad you like it, Princess. They sat together on the floor, setting up the dollhouse while Audrey watched from the couch, a soft smile playing on her lips. She had never seen Layla this happy, and watching Preston with her daughter, something stirred in her chest. By evening, the celebration slowed. Gift and Zara left, and Audrey tucked Layla into bed, brushing back her curls and kissing her forehead. Best birthday ever, Layla whispered, before drifting off to sleep. Audrey walked back into the living room to find Preston still seated on the couch, arms resting on his thighs. Thank you, she said softly, for coming, for the dollhouse, for everything. He nodded. It was nice, really nice. Then came the question. Quiet, curious. So, where's your husband? Audrey laughed, throwing her head back. No husband, no boyfriend. Never really had a man. Preston's brows lifted slightly, but he masked his surprise. You're joking. Nope, she shrugged. Life happened. I chose to be a mom instead. He looked at her for a moment. Really looked. This woman was strength in its purest form. No games, no masks, just real, raw, beautiful energy. It's getting late, he said, rising. As he moved toward the door, he paused. Then, without thinking, he stepped closer, took her hand gently, and leaned in to press a soft kiss against her cheek. Audrey froze. Her breath hitched. Her cheeks flamed. Good night, Audrey, he said with a smirk, then slipped out before she could respond. She stood there for a long moment, hands still tingling, heart racing. What just happened? Audrey rushed into Colin's coffee snacks an hour later than usual, her chest heaving slightly from the pace at which she'd walked. Layla had woken up with a slight fever, and Audrey had spent the morning sponging her down, making sure she was comfortable with Mrs. Jones before she hurried off to work. She barely had time to catch her breath before the storm started. Why on earth are you strolling into my cafe late, you lazy thing? Mr. Collins barked from behind the counter, loud enough for both staff and customers to hear. I don't know why I still condone your sluggishness. I should have replaced you a long time ago. Audrey paused, swallowing the heat of embarrassment rising up her neck. Her palms tightened into fists at her sides. He continued, sneering. Listen well. The office across the road, yes, the one with that arrogant young boss, he requested that you bring him coffee every morning, 9 a.m. sharp. Audrey blinked. Why me? Mr. Collins scoffed, his lip curling like he'd tasted something sour. That's exactly what I asked myself. Why you? But the man pays well, so don't ask stupid questions. Just go, now. Audrey quietly took the insulated coffee flask, smoothed her apron, and made her way across the road to the iconic glass building. The sleekness of the structure alone screamed money. Inside, the receptionist barely looked up, just waved her in and gestured to the elevator. At the executive floor, Audrey stepped out and wandered down the hall. There was no assistant in sight, and as she approached Preston's office door, she raised her hand to knock, but a sharp voice stopped her mid-motion. Hey, what do you think you're doing? A well-dressed woman snapped, suddenly appearing from behind a divider. Audrey froze. I was just about to deliver coffee. Who gave you the right to call him by his first name without saying, Sir, the assistant interrupted, voice rising. And look at you. You're wrinkled, unkempt, and you were going to knock on that door? Audrey's cheeks flushed in humiliation. She stammered, He asked me. Before she could finish, the woman raised her hand, fury flashing in her eyes. Audrey flinched, her eyes fluttering shut as she braced for the slap, but it never landed. Instead, she heard his voice, firm, cold, and furious. Pack your things. You're done here. Audrey's eyes opened to see Preston standing behind the assistant, arms folded, his glare hard as steel. The woman's mouth opened in shock. Preston, please, I've been looking for a reason to fire you, he said, his voice icy. You just gave it to me. You don't touch her. You don't talk to her like that. He turned to security and motioned with his chin. Escort her out as they hauled the disgraced assistant away. Audrey stood there, stunned. Come in, Preston said softly, his voice now warm as he opened the door to his office. She followed, still shaken. He motioned for her to sit on the soft leather couch while he poured her a glass of water. Sorry you had to go through that, he said. Some people let power go to their heads. I don't tolerate disrespect. They sat and talked. Nothing too deep, but enough. Enough for Audrey to feel seen, enough for Preston to breathe easier just having her near. That simple coffee delivery became a ritual. For over 2 weeks, Audrey found herself at Preston's office every morning, sometimes dropping off coffee, sometimes staying a few minutes longer just to talk. Her presence became expected, then welcome, then essential. People began to whisper. His staff noticed. Her colleagues noticed. But Preston didn't care. Neither did Audrey. Every evening, No matter when shift ended, he was there, waiting for her outside the cafe in his car, like it was the most natural thing in the world. He would drive her home, sometimes sit and chat with Mrs. Jones, and always brought something for Layla. Books, toys, a new lunchbox, a bar of chocolate. He was gradually becoming part of their world, and slowly, without saying much, he was becoming her favorite person. Friday nights usually felt like any other to Audrey. Exhausting, quiet, routine. But not tonight. Tonight had its own rhythm, and it began the moment Preston's sleek, black car rolled up in front of the cafe, headlights soft against the early evening dusk. Audrey stepped in, and as always, he greeted her with a small smile that carried more meaning than words. She still couldn't quite believe he showed up for her every single day. When they arrived at her home, she opened the door, expecting him to say goodnight like he always did. Instead, he followed her in, holding a small plush teddy bear wrapped with a red bow. "Someone's been expecting you," Audrey teased, her smile widening. Sure enough, Layla peeked from the hallway like a secret agent. "Uncle Preston," she squealed, running into his arms. "This is for you," he said, kneeling and handing her the teddy, "because every princess deserves a royal guardian." Layla giggled and clutched it tight. "Come read to me, please." Preston glanced at Audrey, seeking permission. She nodded. A few minutes later, Audrey peeked into Layla's room to see Preston on her tiny bed, holding a storybook and reading with calm patience. Layla's little feet were curled under her head resting on his shoulder. By the time the story ended, she was fast asleep, the teddy bear clutched in one arm. Preston adjusted the blanket around her and brushed a soft kiss against her forehead. He looked at her peaceful face and whispered under his breath, "I could really get used to this." Back in the living room, Audrey was curled up on the couch, watching Game of Thrones. The room was dimly lit, the soft flicker of the TV casting golden light across her features. Preston walked in quietly and sat beside her, their shoulders brushing. For a long while, neither of them spoke. They simply watched, laughed softly at Tyrion's witty comebacks, and shared glances every time something dramatic happened. 2 episodes in, and the air had shifted. It was no longer just about the show. Preston turned slightly, his eyes on her more than the screen. Slowly, he reached for her hand, gentle, testing. Audrey looked down, then at him, her pulse already quickening. He moved closer. "Audrey," he whispered, voice low, "can I kiss you?" She hesitated, her lips parted to form a sentence. Something logical, "We're just friends." But the words never came, because he kissed her. The moment their lips met, everything stilled. The world outside faded. It was slow at first, tender and careful, but it deepened quickly, growing urgent, intense, like Preston had been waiting for years. His hands cupped her face and she melted into the feeling. Into him. He pulled back finally, eyes half-lidded, breath uneven. Audrey's eyes were still closed, her lips tingling. He chuckled softly and whispered, "Me, I just stole your first kiss." Her eyes fluttered open, dazed. "You did. I should have asked first," he murmured, brushing a stray curl from her face. "But I couldn't wait anymore." She smiled nervously, her heart racing. Preston looked into her eyes. "Audrey, I think it's time I tell you this. I've been crazy about you since the day I saw you. You were beautiful, yes, but it was your peace, your spirit, your strength that undid me." Audrey blinked, eye widening. "I didn't want to rush anything. I knew you were special, and I wanted to treat you like you deserve," he continued. "But it's been hard pretending to be just your friend. Every time I see you, I want to hold you, kiss you, protect you. And when I found out about Layla, it made me want you both even more. You're a package deal, and I want all of it." A pause. His voice softened. "I want us to be more than just friends. So with all that being said, will you make me the happiest man alive and go out on a date with me?" Audrey stared at him, stunned. Her heart thudded in her ears. She nodded, barely able to find her voice. Preston tilted his head and whispered, "Use your words." Audrey let out a small laugh, breathless. Yes, I'll go on a date with you. He kissed her again, this time with a different kind of hunger, like a man claiming what had always been his. When he pulled back, she was breathless. Preston leaned in, gave her a playful squeeze on the cheek, and stood. Good night, Audrey. Then, like a beautiful storm, he was gone. Audrey remained on the couch, frozen, lips tingling, heart soaring. It took her 10 full minutes to finally move. When she did, she walked to her bedroom in a daze and lay down, staring at the ceiling. Sleep never came, because Preston had kissed her, and the entire world had changed. The sun bathed the park in soft gold, the trees swaying gently as children raced past in pure joy. Layla was one of them, running, laughing, twirling with her teddy bear clutched tightly in one hand. But she wasn't alone. Right beside her, in a crisp white t-shirt and joggers that somehow still looked designer-level fine, was Preston. He chased after her, arms stretched wide, pretending to stumble every few feet just to make her laugh harder. "Come back here, little troublemaker," he shouted playfully, doubling over in mock exhaustion. Audrey sat under the shade of a large mango tree, her shoes kicked off and a gentle smile on her face. She couldn't remember the last time she felt this light, like life paused just for her to breathe. The bench beneath her was warm from the sun, but the joy in her chest was warmer. Watching Preston be so present, so full of childlike energy, made something soft bloom in her chest. He wasn't just playing dad, he was becoming one, and Layla adored him. She called him Uncle Preston, but the bond between them was already so much more. Preston caught Layla eventually, spinning her in the air until she squealed, then gently sat her down beside Audrey. "Mommy!" Layla giggled. "Uncle Preston can't catch me." Audrey chuckled. "Because you're too fast." He grinned, breathless. "She's got legs like lightning. I'm getting old." The three of them shared a bottle of cold water and a bag of Puff Puff from a park vendor. And for a while, everything felt like a dream Audrey never realized she was allowed to have. But what moved her even more than the park days was watching Preston evolve. He had never been much of a churchgoer. He'd once told her, "Church isn't really my thing," with a casual shrug. But Audrey didn't push. Instead, she invited him gently to come along with her and Layla every other Sunday. The first time, he sat stiffly in the back, glancing at his watch more than the pulpit. But by the third visit, he was nodding during the sermon, eyes focused on the word. Audrey watched the transformation with quiet awe. Then he started giving, tithes, offerings, donations, but not out of obligation, out of conviction. He wanted to help, and the church used his generosity to expand their outreach, feed orphans, and house the homeless. It touched Audrey deeply. One Saturday evening, the two of them were in her cozy kitchen. The air was thick with the smell of sizzling ugu leaves, periwinkles, and dried fish. Audrey stood barefoot, stirring her rich vegetable soup, while Preston assisted, carefully washing the scent leaves and trying not to mess up the seasoning ratios she taught him. "You're taking this soup thing seriously," Audrey teased, giving him a sideways look. Preston smirked. "I told you I learned fast." Then his tone shifted. "Audrey," she turned to him slowly, sensing something different in his voice. "Would I be rushing things if I asked you to come meet my parents?" The spoon paused mid-stir. "Your parents?" she echoed. He wiped his hands on a kitchen towel and stepped closer to her. "I'm not playing games with you. I've never been more serious about anything in my life. I love you, Audrey, and I want the people I love to meet the woman who changed everything for me. You. I want them to see the woman I'm willing to go to any length for." Audrey's heart slammed against her chest. His parents? The Awus? Prestigious, powerful, polished? Her mind immediately jumped to her simple life, her small apartment, her second-hand shoes. What if they didn't like her? What if they thought she wasn't enough? "I don't know if I'm their kind of woman," she said quietly, avoiding his gaze. Preston gently tilted her chin up. "You're more than enough. If they have any sense at all, which they do, they'll love you. Just like I do." His voice was steady. full of conviction. She nodded slowly. Okay, I'll go. He smiled, relief and joy flashing across his face. Tomorrow evening. I'll pick you up by 7. As they returned to their cooking, Audrey tried to stay present, but inside her nerves were already dancing. Because there was one small problem. She didn't own a dress elegant enough to meet the hours. Her wardrobe was neat and clean, but simple. Sundresses, work shirts, and casual flats. Nothing that screamed sophistication or status. Nothing that said, I belong in a billionaire's world. Still, she hadn't told Preston yet. Not tonight. Tonight was soup and safety and something close to love. But tomorrow was the beginning of something bigger. Audrey stood in front of her open wardrobe, heart pounding. Hangers clinked softly as she sifted through every dress, every blouse, every carefully folded item, hoping anything, would stand out. But no matter how neat, everything felt too simple, too ordinary. Certainly not what one wore to meet the prestigious Owu family. Just as she was about to give up, her fingers grazed a garment bag hidden behind her jackets. Her breath caught. She pulled it out slowly and unzipped it. Inside was a stunning emerald green designer gown, the last gift her mother ever bought for herself before she passed. Audrey had kept it carefully wrapped and untouched, saving it for a moment that truly mattered. And this moment did. She laid the dress across her bed, eyes stinging slightly with emotion. You'd love him, Mama, she whispered. He's good. He really is. Earlier that afternoon, she had gone out and found the perfect outfit for Layla, a gorgeous blush pink dress with little pearl details, paired with silver ballet flats. She wasn't going anywhere without her baby. Layla was part of her, and if the Awus wanted her, they had to embrace all of her. By 6:30 p.m., Audrey had finished her makeup, a soft glow with nude tones, and slipped into the emerald gown. It hugged her figure modestly but beautifully, the satin pooling gracefully at her ankles. She looked like something out of a magazine. Layla, in her sparkly pink dress, spun around the living room giggling, her beads clinking softly. At exactly 7 p.m., a knock sounded on the door. Audrey's heart jumped. She opened it to see Preston standing there in a black tailored suit that fit him like a dream. But when he saw both of them, Audrey radiant in green and Layla glowing like a little princess, he lost his breath for a second. Wow, he whispered, you two are stunning. He escorted them into his sleek black SUV, opening the doors like a gentleman. The ride was smooth, quiet at first, until they reached the estate gates and the mansion beyond came into view. Audrey's mouth parted in surprise. It wasn't just a nice house, it was a palace. Marble steps, garden fountains, security, luxury wrapped in warmth. She turned to him slowly. You didn't tell me you were this. He glanced at her, amused. Would it have changed anything? She thought for a moment. No, but still. Preston smiled. You never asked. You didn't care about the money. You saw me. That's why I love you. And that's why I'm going to give you the whole world. Audrey's smile spread slowly across her face. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. Inside, they were met by Preston's mother, a regal woman in her 50s with grace in every step and warmth in her eyes. She opened her arms the moment she saw Audrey. So this is the famous Audrey, she said, beaming. You're even more beautiful in person. And this little one, Layla giggled as Mrs. O. knelt and hugged her. You're welcome, princess. Preston's father was calm and observant, offering Audrey a firm handshake and a rare smile. But the surprise of the night was his 16-year-old sister, Mimi, who instantly clicked with Layla. They were inseparable within minutes, playing dress-up and sharing cupcakes before dinner. Dinner was served in the formal dining room, Chinese fried rice, spicy orange chicken, sautéed shrimp, and glasses of fine wine. Layla had her own special plate with less pepper and lots of sweet corn. She couldn't stop smiling. Between sips and bites, the Ayus asked Audrey questions. Not interrogations, but thoughtful, genuine inquiries. They wanted to know who she was, what she loved, what her dreams were. Audrey answered each one with quiet honesty and grace. Preston barely took his eyes off her all evening. When dessert was served and the clock neared 10, Preston casually leaned over and said, "You're not going home tonight." Layla, already half asleep, perked up. "Can I sleep in Mimi's room?" "Of course, sweetheart," Mimi said, grabbing her hand and disappearing down the hall. Preston led Audrey to a luxurious guest room, but she didn't stay there long. She took a quick shower, slipped into one of his oversized black shirts, soft and smelling like him, and walked into his room where he was already waiting in sweatpants and a gray tee. She paused by the door, her heart in her throat. He looked up from the bed, surprised but happy. "You okay?" Audrey nodded, walking toward him. "I just have something to tell you." Preston had never seen Audrey look this way. Not broken, not nervous, but still and unsure, like she was standing at the edge of something, waiting to see if he would pull her back or let her fall. "I have something to tell you," she said again, barely above a whisper. He felt his heartbeat spike. She was wearing his black shirt, standing there in his bedroom with the soft scent of lavender trailing behind her, looking like peace, carrying the weight of a storm. His jaw tightened slightly, but his voice came out even. "Okay," he replied. "I'm listening." Was this it? Was she going to tell him she had someone else? That this was just a phase for her? Audrey took a slow breath, her fingers gently fidgeting with the hem of the oversized shirt. Then she lifted her eyes to his. "I'm a virgin, Preston." He blinked. "I've never had a boyfriend before you," she said softly. "You stole my first kiss that night on the couch. And I let you. Because I knew, deep down, I'd never want anyone else to have it." Preston's eyebrows drew together. "But, Layla?" Audrey sat on the edge of the bed, folding her hands tightly on her lap. She looked down for a long moment before finally speaking again, voice steady but filled with history. "She's not my biological daughter." Preston's heart paused. "She's my sister's child, Zion." She glanced up briefly to study his expression, but he was listening, fully and deeply. "I was still in medical school when Zion showed up at my door one evening. I'd just gotten back from class, and there she was, with a baby in her arms, wrapped in a blue shawl." Audrey's throat tightened. She said, "I'm not ready to be a goddamn mother. Don't ever call me her mom. She's yours now." And then she left. Like it was nothing. She took another breath, her voice beginning to tremble, but she didn't stop. "She put my name on the birth certificate, and with our parents already gone, there was no one else. I tried to keep going with school, but I couldn't afford it anymore. I had to make a decision, and I chose Layla." Preston was silent, completely still. His hands were folded, his eyes locked on her like she just revealed an entire universe inside of her. "I became her mom because she needed one, because someone had to love her. And I kept my virginity because I wanted to give it to the man I would marry. All of me, the body, my heart, my soul, everything." She finally looked up at him. "I wanted you to know the truth, all of it." Preston felt like his lungs had left his body. He'd known Audrey was different, her grace, her warmth, her strength. But this? She wasn't just special. She was sacred. The silence between them stretched long, heavy with emotion. Then slowly Preston stood up, walked over to where she sat, and knelt in front of her. She looked at him, startled. "You raised a child that wasn't yours. You sacrificed your dreams. You let your sister walk away, and you still didn't grow bitter." "Audrey," he shook his head slightly, his voice thick with awe. "You're the strongest woman I've ever met." His hand reached out, fingers brushing her cheek. "And the most beautiful, inside and out." Audrey's lip trembled. "I don't deserve you," he murmured. Tears finally spilled from her eyes. Not of sorrow, but of pure, overwhelming release. Preston wrapped his arms around her, pulling her into his chest. She melted into the warmth of him, burying her face against his neck, breathing in the safety she'd longed for and finally found. "I'm so proud of you," he whispered into her hair. "Layla is lucky to have you." He pulled back just slightly, cupping her face again. and I'm lucky to have you both." Then tenderly he leaned in and kissed her, soft and slow, not hungry like before, but reverent, a promise sealed in silence. "I love you, Audrey," he said when he pulled back. She opened her mouth, her heart bursting. "I love you too, Preston." In that moment, he made a silent vow. He was going to marry her. Not someday, soon, because people like Audrey were rare. And when you found them, you didn't hesitate. You held on for life. That night, while Audrey slept peacefully in Preston's bed, her breathing soft, her hand tucked under her cheek like a child, Preston sat in his study, wide awake, heart thumping with anticipation. The decision had already been made. He was going to propose. Tomorrow. Everything about Audrey, the way she loved, the way she sacrificed, the way she simply existed, was extraordinary. She wasn't just a good woman. She was the kind of woman a man got on his knees for, built a home around, and gave the world to. He had already called his team. A private lounge in Lagos was booked, musicians hired, a small crowd of loved ones quietly invited. The perfect ring sparkled in a velvet box on his desk, an emerald stone, not just because it matched her favorite dress, but because she was his rare gem. By morning, everything was set. That afternoon, after spending time with Layla and sharing laughter over lunch, Preston drove them back to Audrey's home. The sky was softening into golden hues as they approached the porch, until Audrey's heart nearly stopped. Sitting there casually like she hadn't vanished for years, was Zion. Audrey's steps faltered. "Zion?" she whispered. Preston, sensing the moment's weight, gently picked up Layla, who had fallen asleep in the back seat, and took her inside without a word, giving the sisters space. Audrey slowly sat beside her sister on the porch, the air between them tight with years of silence. Zion looked healthier, her eyes clearer, her body less frail, but her face still carried the shadows of the past. "I didn't come to cause drama," she said quietly. I saw you and Layla today, and I had to say something." Audrey remained still. "I saw how much she loves you, how much you love her. I've never seen a child so happy. You're doing amazing, Audrey. I mean it." She paused, swallowing. "After Mom and Dad died, I spiraled. I relapsed hard. Edward, the guy I was seeing, encouraged it. I didn't know how bad he was until he found out about my inheritance. He stole everything and vanished." She blinked, her throat tightening. "Then I found out I was pregnant. I thought I could do it. I really did. But when she came, I looked at her and just knew I wasn't fit to be her mother. That's why I left her with you, because I trusted you more than I ever trusted myself." Audrey's heart cracked open in places she didn't even know were still wounded. She didn't speak. She just listened. "I've been clean for 2 years now," Zion added, "and I'm working at a rehab center. I came today because I needed you to know. I don't want to take Layla. She's yours, Audrey. She always has been. I just needed you to hear it from me." Audrey blinked back tears as Zion pulled her into a tight, trembling hug. "I'll keep in touch. If you'll let me." And with that, Zion rose and quietly walked away, disappearing into the Lagos twilight. Back inside, Audrey found Preston waiting for her in the living room. He rose when she entered, and without a word, wrapped his arms around her. "You did well," he whispered into her hair. "You forgave her. That takes courage." Audrey exhaled against his chest. "I didn't do it for her. I did it for Layla, and maybe a little for me too." Preston smiled, then pulled back to look at her. "Good, because tonight, I'm taking you and Layla somewhere, so get ready." Before she could ask questions, he was already out the door. At exactly 7 p.m. he returned, this time holding 2 dresses. A deep red off-shoulder satin gown for Audrey, and a lavender-purple ball gown for Layla. "For my queens," he said with a wink. An hour later, dressed to perfection, the 3 of them pulled up to one of the most elegant lounges in Lagos. Audrey stepped inside, gasping at the fairy lights, rose petals scattered across the floor, and the warm smiles of familiar faces. Soft music played from a live saxophonist in the corner. Preston took her hand gently and led her to the front. The crowd parted like the sea. Then, right there, under the soft lights and golden chandeliers, Preston dropped to one knee. "Audrey Eek," he began, his voice steady but full of emotion. "You are the best thing that has ever happened to me. You're strong, beautiful, kind, and the most incredible mother to Layla." Audrey's hands flew to her mouth as tears filled her eyes. "You've shown me a kind of love I never knew existed. I promise to protect you, love you, guide you, and walk beside you every day. As your husband, as Layla's father, as your forever." He opened the box to reveal the emerald ring. "Will you marry me?" Audrey's knees buckled with emotion as she cried out, "Yes, yes, 1,000 times, yes!" She leaped into his arms, laughter and tears spilling at once as the crowd erupted into applause. Layla ran toward them, hugging their legs tight, giggling. "My mummy's getting married," she squealed. Preston kissed Audrey deeply, lifting her slightly off the ground. And in that moment, surrounded by love, by light, by promises, Audrey knew this was only the beginning of their forever. After weeks of dress fittings, cake tastings, invitation deliveries, dance rehearsals, and back-to-back appointments, the day finally arrived. The day Audrey Ike would marry Preston Ikena Owu, the man who had seen her, chosen her, and loved her through and through. The sun shone gently over Lagos that morning, casting a soft golden hue on everything it touched. The venue was nothing short of a dream, a lush cathedral adorned with chandeliers, white roses, flowing drapes, and golden lights that shimmered like stars. Guests from every corner of the city were seated, whispering in awe as orchestral music floated through the air. Then the doors opened. All heads turned, and there she stood, Audrey Eek, a goddess. Her gown, custom-made and intricately beaded, hugged her curves like it was sewn by angels. Crystals sparkled with every step, and a delicate silver tiara crowned her long, luscious wig, styled in soft waves. She looked like royalty, like the woman she had fought to become. But what made the moment even more powerful was the tiny flower girl walking beside her, Layla, in a puffy white ball gown with soft tulle and crystal-encrusted slippers, held a bouquet of baby's breath and rose petals. Her curls were pinned up with butterfly clips, and her smile lit up the entire aisle. Audrey held her hand tightly as they walked together, two hearts bound by love, history, and healing. Up ahead, Preston waited. Clad in a cream and gold tuxedo, his eyes never left her. The closer she came, the faster his heart raced. It was hard to breathe. This was it. She was really his. When Audrey finally reached him, he took her hand gently and mouthed, "You look like heaven." The ceremony was everything holy and everything beautiful. They exchanged heartfelt vows, promising loyalty, honesty, laughter, and partnership. When the officiating pastor declared them husband and wife, Preston kissed her like the world had gone still. The crowd erupted in applause. The celebration that followed was grand, extravagant, and joyful. A 7-tier wedding cake, a live band flown in from Ghana, and fireworks lit up the night sky. There was dancing, tears, and laughter. Audrey and Preston floated across the dance floor like they were born to be together. At one point, Layla tugged on Preston's jacket and whispered, "You're my daddy now, right?" He bent down, lifted her in his arms, and said, "I always was, baby girl." Audrey watched them, heart full and eyes misty. Late that night, the couple returned to Preston's mansion, a soft hush settling over the home. Their suite was adorned with candles, rose petals, and silk sheets. But something unexpected caught Audrey's eye. On the bed was a simple white envelope with her name written in Preston's bold, slanted handwriting. She opened it and gasped. Inside was an official admission and tuition payment slip from the same university she had dropped out of years ago. Preston had pulled every string necessary, arranged everything in secret. She could return. She could finally finish medical school. Tears slid down her cheeks as she turned to face him. "You remembered," she whispered. "I never forgot," he said, stepping toward her. "You gave up your dream to raise Layla. Now it's time you get to chase yours." She dropped the letter and kissed him, deeply, fully, gratefully. That night, she gave herself to him completely. Preston touched her with reverence, love, and unfiltered passion. Every kiss marked her as his. Every whisper made her tremble. He held her like a sacred thing, and their lovemaking was slow, sensual, and overwhelming, a blend of emotion and ecstasy that neither of them would ever forget. He kissed her over and over again, every part of her, until she knew deep in her soul that she was his and he was hers. And as they lay tangled in each other's arms, skin to skin, heart to heart, Audrey whispered, "I love you, husband." He smiled and kissed her temple. "And I love you, my wife. You're everything I ever prayed for." Months passed. Their marriage was peaceful, joyful, full of grace. Audrey thrived, balancing medical school and motherhood with a husband who supported her every step of the way. Preston became not just a great husband, but the kind of father Layla would proudly speak about for years. Every morning, he brought Audrey coffee with a note. Every night, he tucked Layla in and read her bedtime stories. Their house was filled with laughter, love, and healing. Audrey often found herself pausing just to smile at how far she had come, from a struggling waitress in a small flat, to a bride in a palace, to a wife, a mother, and a doctor in training. She had won. She had the love she always dreamed of. She had Preston, and he had her forever. 2 years later, the auditorium erupted with applause as names were called, each graduate stepping proudly onto the stage. Families cheered, cameras flashed, lives changed. In the front row, Preston Owu stood tall in a perfectly tailored suit, his arm wrapped gently around Layla, now 9 years old and beaming in a white floral dress. Then came the name, Audrey Owu. The room thundered with excitement. Preston's heart swelled as he watched his wife walk across the stage, her white medical coat crisp and fitted, her graduation cap tilted slightly to the side. She walked like she belonged there, confident, radiant, unstoppable. Layla screamed, "That's my mummy!" Preston laughed, clapping so hard his palms stung. Audrey took her certificate, bowed slightly to the faculty, and then turned to the crowd. She spotted her family immediately, her everything, and her eyes shimmered with tears. She had made it. After the ceremony, they rushed to her with roses, balloons, and so many hugs. Preston wrapped his arms around her, kissed her deeply, and whispered, "Dr. Owu, I am so proud of you." Layla hugged her legs, practically jumping. "Mummy, you did it!" Audrey kissed both their foreheads. "We did it! All of us!" Later that night, back home, they sat together on the couch. Layla had dozed off with her head on Audrey's lap, still in her dress. The house was quiet and calm. Preston handed Audrey a glass of juice, and she took a slow sip, smiling. "You've been glowing extra hard lately," he said, eyeing her suspiciously. "What are you not telling me?" Audrey bit her lip, slid her hand into his, and whispered, "We're having a baby." Preston froze, then blinked. Then, "You're serious?" She nodded, giggling. "I'm pregnant." Preston lifted her off the couch instantly, spinning her in a circle before kissing her, like he'd just won the lottery all over again. "A baby," he whispered, laying his hand on her stomach. "Our baby." Audrey's smile grew softer. "Layla's getting a sibling." And just like that, their family, built on faith, love, sacrifice, and second chances, was growing again. In that moment, Preston looked at his wife and thought the same thing he'd thought the day he proposed. "I will love her for the rest of my life." And this time he had a lifetime to prove it. The end. Dear viewers, what lesson did you take away from this dramatic tale? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below.